Hi, and welcome to Cool Jobs. I'm Caden Amoroso, your host of the show that aims to answer the question that every kid is asked at Thanksgiving by their relatives, which is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Not knowing the answer myself, I've decided to set out on an interviewing adventure where I would find individuals who have achieved the dream of working fun and rewarding careers and ask them how they found these jobs. What are some of the challenges these jobs present? And what keeps them motivated and driven to continue their work. All of this so that other kids and teens out there can learn with me and find the answer to the same question that I struggle with, which is, what do we want to be when we grow up?
I guess we could get started with the first question. What does a talent manager and producer do?
Good question. They're two separate jobs. So first of all, my name is Joel Zadak. I am a talent manager and a producer. I work at a company called Artist First in Los Angeles. We're a talent management and production company. We have about 24 to 25 managers who also produce at my company. We have offices in Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York City. The question is, what do I do I'll start with a talent manager. What do I do as a talent manager? So as a talent manager, I am charged with managing the careers of artists. And I represent artists in the film and television and live and podcast space. And I personally focus on mainly comedic talent, people who are funny. And what I'm in charge of doing is really managing their careers, which involves everything from helping to create their projects, helping to sell their projects, helping getting them jobs, acting roles, directing roles, writing roles, live stand-up dates, podcast deals, and also managing kind of the day-to-day of their career, which is, through the help of my assistants, managing the artist's schedule, like their calendar, where they need to be, handling all of their information that a production might need, doing all of the logistics from their travel to making sure that all of their materials, their headshots, their resumes, their bio, their reel. A reel is like a video compilation of the work that they've done previously. All of the materials that we do to sell them are in order. I oftentimes with these artists, I work in conjunction with their talent agent and also their attorney. And the talent agent job which is not my job, but they are strictly like an employment agencies where they're strictly out there looking for work to have the artist be paid to do. The attorneys handle their deals, their negotiations of their contract. I'm also tangentially involved in the negotiation of contracts, but in the state of California, in order to fully negotiate deals, you need to be either an attorney or a licensed talent agent. So yeah, that's what I do as a manager. As a producer, and I've produced a couple studio films. I produced a movie called Keanu. I produced another movie called Like a Boss. And on television, I did Key and Peele. That was an idea that I came up with for Keegan Michael Key and Jordan Peele. We did 5 seasons of that. We won an Emmy. It was my favorite thing I've ever done. I've done another TV show called The Last OG, which was on TBS for 4 seasons with Tracy Morgan, that Jordan Peele also executive produced, and I put my client Tiffany Hadish in that. And also, many stand-up specials from Ronnie Chang to Nicole Byer to Tiffany Haddish to D. Ray Davis and Jimmy O. Yang, many stand-up specials. As a producer, I'm almost always, for me personally, I'm almost always working with one of my clients who are a part of the project. They either helped create the project, or they're the star of the project, or they're both, or they're directing the project. And what I do as a producer is so many things. What a producer does, from everything from help develop the idea from the very beginning, to selling the idea to studios and networks, to hiring the writers, the directors, the actors, to helping dealing with all of the notes process of the notes on the scripts, the notes on the edits, to on-set production when we're actually on location shooting the show, dealing with pretty much everything that comes up that the production needs. I'm involved in television. I'm oftentimes an executive producer, which is the highest title, and I'm usually doing that in conjunction with multiple other executive producers. In film, I'm also usually the producer with a capital P, producer, which is also the highest level producer on the film. And again, I'm working with other producers on that. And while you didn't ask this question, one of the biggest challenges in both of those jobs is balance. It's balancing of, if I represent 20, 30, 40 clients, making sure that I'm giving enough attention to them, and if I'm producing a movie or a television show, giving enough of my attention to my job as a producer, while I'm still managing. At the company I work for, I'm one of the partners, so I'm involved in the running of the business and everything from hiring new employees to running certain meetings or to assigning people jobs or what have you. And I usually have one or two assistants to help me do that. So yeah, that's basically what I do. There's many nuances within both of those responsibilities, and I can answer any questions about that, but that's in a nutshell what I do.
Wow, that's a lot.
It really is.
So does it overlap? Like, do you have like being a manager with clients and also being a producer? Does the schedules overlap or no?
100%. Yeah, and I'm usually wearing multiple hats at the same time. And even when I'm let's say when I produce Key and Peele, I produced Key and Peele, the executive producer of that show, and I managed Keegan Michael Key and Jordan Peele at the time. So while I was working on that show, I was producing and managing both of them, along with like 20 some other clients at the time. So it was, it's a very busy day, and it's a lot of balance, and it requires a lot of patience and many skills. It requires quite a few skills to balance in order to be both of those jobs.
Yeah, wow. No procrastination.
I'm always procrastinating something, but because I'm doing something else at the same time. It's not like I'm never bored. I'm never sitting on my hands saying, what should I do next? It's never the case. Probably for me, the biggest challenge is the prioritization, like what I should be doing right now and how to both do my job for today and then also prepare for tomorrow. Because if you know anything about film and television, they're not something that just says, okay, let's do a movie today, and then tomorrow you're shooting the movie. That's not how it works. Oftentimes it takes many years to get a movie project off the ground. And in television, which can happen a lot quicker, it's still, I think the shortest time between idea and actually shooting something in television was still about 9 months. It takes a long time.
What kind of training, or was there any sort of training or education? I know that you had your majors in political science, and how did you switch that into this film career?
So I'll tell you how I got into it, and is there training required for this job? I would say that there is not necessarily training required to get into this field, because like many people, I started as an assistant. I was an assistant to a manager, and I was promoted very quickly because it was a very small company and they needed more salespeople. A manager is also a salesperson because we're selling, and they needed more salespeople than they needed assistants. So I'll tell you how I got started. I went to college at Loyola University of Chicago, and I studied political science and criminal justice. When I started, I wanted to be like a defense attorney. And I very quickly did not pursue that line of work. But while I was working other jobs in Chicago, I had a job in insurance, and then later in ad sales, and then later in book publishing. I was very interested in the arts. So I took writing classes at night at Columbia College in Chicago. And I also took improvisational classes at the Second City, which is one of the biggest improv theaters, sketch comedy theaters in the country. It's where Tina Fey and Steve Carell and John Belushi and Jim Belushi and Mike Myers, and the list really goes on and on of the many stuff, Bill Murray, that the list goes on and on of who's come out of that theater. So I took classes there. And while I was in Chicago, I was taking a screenwriting course, which is a course to learn how to write scripts for movies. And I thought I was really good at it. And I wanted to move to LA to be a writer. So in 1999, I got accepted to UCLA's grad program for screenwriting, and I moved to LA April 1999. Classes started in July. This is when the internet was still dial-up. I don't even think DSL existed. I certainly did not have a cell phone at the time, and I didn't know anybody in town. And I went looking for a job, thinking, like Chicago, that all the office jobs would be 9 to 5. Classes started at 7 p.m. I can go to class 9 to 5, and then have an hour to work out and get dinner, and then go to class. And I went looking for a job. I sent out 200 letters, 200 blind letters, because IMDb, which is obviously, I'm pretty sure you know what IMDb is. It's a
Mhm.
a website that has details about film and television projects. And I went on IMDb and I found all of the places that did comedy, and I wrote them a letter saying I was looking for a job. Of those 200 letters, I didn't get a single response, not one. And then I was looking for a job there's two journals that are very popular in Hollywood. One of them is called The Hollywood Reporter, and the other one's called Variety. And in 1999, there were paper magazines. There were like magazines, like papers that came out every day, or at least Monday through Friday, they come out every day. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they had help wanted sections in the back. And I found an ad in the back of the Hollywood Reporter that I picked up at a 7-Eleven. I didn't even buy this Hollywood Reporter. I just brought my notebook and I was writing down any jobs. And I faxed, it was an ad for assistant to talent manager in comedy. And I faxed my resume. I got an interview, and it was a small company, very small company. And they managed Second City for film and television. I had just studied there. So he hired me, and 2 months later, the guy who hired me started his own company with one other person. 2 months after that, I was promoted to manager, and I was told to go out, sign clients, and make money. That was my advice. That's what I was given. I wasn't told how to do that. I was told to do that. And I called one of my teachers in Second City, a comedian named Matt Dwyer, and he referred me a couple of clients. One of them is a guy named Lance Barber, who I still represent, who is the dad, George Sr. on Young Sheldon. And he also referred me a very, very, very funny comedian, probably the funniest person I've ever met. He was a guy he knew from Blue Man Group in Chicago named Fred Armisen. So, and then also I had learned from a colleague of mine about this two-person show called Pickups and Hiccups that had Seth Meyers in it. So I signed Seth Meyers, I signed Fred Armisen, I signed Lance Barber. I got them all jobs. I got Seth Meyers on Saturday Night Live very quickly. The following year, I got Fred Armisen on Saturday Night Live, and I never went to classes. I never went to those UCLA classes because it wasn't a 9 to 5 job. Hollywood is not a 9 to 5 job. There's very, very few jobs in Hollywood that are 9 to 5. It was definitely 9 to like 6:30, and then I was told to go and see comedy every single night to find clients. So I had to drop out of that program if I wanted to be a manager. And so my dreams of becoming a writer were quickly replaced by dreams of making enough money as a talent manager and eventually producing comedies with my clients. So the training that I had in order to do it was I wrote comedy, I performed improv, and I had just come from 3 office jobs where I knew how to use a computer, I knew how to operate the phones, I'd been as an assistant previously, I'd been an account executive, so I knew how to deal with people on the business level, and I knew how to write. And I knew how to write email correspondence and submission letters, and I knew how to write appointments, draft appointments, and I was always a really good writer and very organized with my thoughts and a decent communicator. And I knew what was funny because I had performed and written comedy. So I went out, and my litmus test was, you have to be funnier than me, and I have to believe that I can sell you. And that was it. And I found plenty of people that were funnier than me that I thought I could sell. And sure enough, I was able to sign them and sell them. So I've been doing this. I was promoted to manager in October of 1999. So I've been doing this 24 years.
You must have learned a lot of skills from doing this for so long, but
Yeah.
What would you say your most impactful one has been? Skill learned, I guess.
In terms of skills that I learned, well, there's patience, because I've learned patience. I represented, I signed Jordan Peele when he was on Mad TV, and he's a very different person than he is now. And he was not as he didn't work. I would say this much: he didn't work as hard then as he does now. And I believed in him, and I believed in him. I believed in his talent, but I was at the time not 100% sure that he had the work ethic to get it done. He definitely proved me wrong pretty quickly. But patience, and I'm trying to think like I guess that's a skill. That's a little bit more of a mindset and a mentality. The skills that I learned certainly were communication, how to communicate with artists. I didn't necessarily know how to communicate with artists in the beginning, other than to say, hey, I really like you. It's a lot more than just liking somebody to be effective as a manager, because you can sign people by liking them, but you might not be able to keep them as clients unless you're being effective for them. And you need to be able to sell them. You need to be able to give them career guidance. Skills is how to guide an artist through their career. Another skill I learned that I had no idea when I started was how to guide artists through great success, because it changes. When you're somebody who is an actor begging for auditions, it's very different when you're somebody who is a star of television and movies, where you're getting opportunities are coming your way, and then you're famous and you can't walk through an airport anymore without being mobbed. Very different.
Almost sounds like polar opposites.
It definitely is polar opposites. And the great thing about talent management is a lot like similar in stand-up comedy. If a young comedian asks an older seasoned comedian, what are your tips for becoming a great comedian? Every great comedian is going to say, you need to go and perform stand-up every single night. There is no rules. You just need to keep performing, and you can't just sit at home and wait for the phone to ring and hope it happens. So same with talent management. You just have to represent quite a few people. And most people, there's literally thousands and thousands of people who move to Hollywood every single year with the dream of becoming a star. And I don't know what the percentage is of people who actually become stars, but I have to guess that it's lower than 5%. It
Wow.
probably is 1%.
Mm-hmm. So I know you mentioned going to comedy shows every night. Is that part of your, what does your average day as a talent manager look like?
It's changed significantly throughout the years. I can answer what it was like in the beginning, and I can answer what it's like now. What do you want me to answer?
You can answer what it's like now.
So for me, because I'm established and I have quite a few marquee clients, I am not focused on finding the next new star. When I was focused on finding the next new star, I was going to the clubs at night looking for somebody performing stand-up. And additionally, when I started in the business, it was in the late 90s, early 2000s, YouTube did not exist, really. It wasn't a thing. And video didn't exist. You had to see people live, or the video existed on a VHS tape. I don't even know if you know what that is. Half my day was I was on the phone trying to sell my clients while I was recording one VHS cassette to a blank VHS cassette so I can send out their stand-up set or their acting reel. So beginning my career, I was certainly looking for a lot of clients. Now I'm not really looking for clients, and oftentimes I get more like people looking for me because they admire some of the clients I currently have, and they probably want my experience. So my day is largely consisting of, depends. If I'm producing a project, I'm very focused on figuring out how to make this a great show or movie that we can either gets picked up to series, or is a hit and it gets good ratings, or is a hit in the box office. So if I'm producing something, I start work around 9:30. I wake up at 5 a.m. And I do my own stuff where I'm basically doing my journaling, my writing, everything else that I'm working on, meditation, breath work, all the stuff that I'm exercise, all the stuff that's getting me ready for the day. And then I probably usually start around 9 or 9:30 working, and it's oftentimes phone calls, calling clients, pitching clients for work. If we're producing something, figuring out what our plan is for the next few weeks and how we're going to make the show or movie. And like at our company, we have probably 4 or 5 staff meetings a week for various things. I attend the staff meetings. I do a lot of business lunches, which is, meeting with producers, with performers, with my clients, with agents, with attorneys, with other managers, and figuring out how I can move my client's career down the road, build the relationships. I'm also a partner at this company, so I have responsibilities of running the company. That's part of it, but the most of the day really is, I can show you really quickly. I have this in front of me at all times, which is, and it's photos of my clients. And I'm basically looking at those photos, constantly asking, what can I do for these people right now? And then also a lot, because I've established, my phone rings pretty much. Right now we're in a strike, so you can't hear the phone ringing as much as it normally does. My phone rings most of the day, and my email is flooded with a lot of incoming offers for my clients, either paid offers or scripts that they want my clients to be a part of, that they want to go out and sell. So it's a lot of fielding the incoming submissions, and then also making submissions of my own. I will make a lot of phone calls to various directors, producers, and studio and network executives to say, you need to know, I just signed Keegan Michael Key. You need to know him. He's a this, he's a that. I think he'd be great for one of your projects. I'd love to set a meeting for you two. Stuff like that. A lot of pitching. I do a lot of pitching, and but my favorite thing to do is coming up with the ideas of what the next project is going to be. I love using my writing skills. I love using my intuition. I think my superpower is with clients is identifying what they're good at, identifying what they're interested in, and then figuring out projects that marry their talents with their interests that also meet what the market is looking for. I love coming up with ideas for projects along with the client that are things that they're going to be passionate about, even when, the rejection comes in, because the rejection pretty much comes in all the time. You would ask previously, like, what is, you kind of want to know what's my least favorite part about the job. My least favorite part about the job is delivering bad news. Calling the client saying, you didn't get the job, you didn't get the directing job, you didn't get the writing job, you didn't get the acting job, or even worse, the show's been canceled. They're not making the movie. A couple times I've had to make this call, that they're fired, telling someone that they're fired. They've actually, they saw you today, they didn't like what you did. They're going to let you go. That's my least favorite part of the job, is giving bad news. I don't like being on a phone when someone's crying. That's why, and it's not, they don't always cry, but occasionally when they do, it's like, oh man, that's bad. The other thing that I don't like doing about my job, and mainly my assistants do this, is I really don't like dealing with scheduling. The scheduling of client dates. I represent, like I said, people who are a little bit higher caliber. So when they're of higher caliber, there's usually multiple projects that want them. And if you know the laws of science, a person can only be in one place at one time. So if they're working on a TV show that shoots in New York and a movie that shoots in Atlanta wants them, and they want to shoot the same day, there's a problem. And I usually have my assistants deal with that. But when there's overlap, I usually have to get involved and try to have the producers and the studios and the various places work out the dates. And I have a big calendar right over here. There's a huge whiteboard calendar to my left. And I look at that as almost as much as I look at the client's photos. And I love looking at the client photos. I get a headache looking at that calendar. The logistics of that, I don't really like. And I don't love making the phone calls to try to work out dates, but it's something I have to do. So I understand it's part of the job.
Mm-hmm. What advice do you have for someone who's trying to be a producer or a talent manager?
Great. I've met very few people who are trying to be a talent manager as in their 20s. That's not something I hear. I interview a lot of assistants, and I'll answer that question second. But I do hear a lot of people saying, I want to produce, because a lot of the people that we meet as assistant, or assistant candidates have gone to university. They studied at NYU or USC or UCLA or Emerson College or Bard College or wherever else, Boston College, various places that have film and television programs. And in those film and television programs, a lot of what they're learning is how to produce, if they're not, studying acting or singing or what have you. So a lot of people come in wanting to produce, and managers, unlike agents, are allowed to produce. So we can be a manager and a producer. So a lot of people will come and want to work in the business of talent management as a gateway to become a producer. But if I'm giving someone advice who comes to me and wants to be a producer, I have a couple pieces of advice. One, try to get an assistant job with a producer, or try to get an assistant job with a manager producer, or an assistant job at a studio or a network that creates the types of projects that you want to work on to learn the business. But also, you need to be producing something. And you need to be producing short films. You need to figure out how to you need to produce. You actually need to do the work. So I would, the great thing about a town like New York or Los Angeles or even Chicago, now Atlanta, and there's various other cities that are, Austin, Texas, that are kind of coming up in the film and television world. There are a bunch of other people who are trying to make stuff. So as a producer, the other advice I would say is become friends with writers. I would say writers first, then directors, and then actors, and then start trying to make stuff and try to figure out how to raise money to make a short film, or raise money to make a super low budget pilot, which is a prototype of a television episode, or super low budget movie, and go out and make it. But as a producer, the most valuable producers have really good ideas. But if they don't have really good ideas, they have great taste and talent. They've got great relationships. And the best producers have the best relationships with writers, because the writers create the material. And if they can have relationships with writers and help generate material and get the scripts that they can later produce and sell, that's what it was. So I would say learn how to produce through being an assistant, or through some type of producing program, or on the job of doing something small, and then really start building your relationships of writers, directors, and actors.
So like practices and apprenticeships sound like two big
Yeah,
things.
for sure. For
Mhm.
sure.
And I know we are at the time limit, but if you don't mind, is it all right if I ask you one more question?
Yeah, sure, please.
What is your definition of success? What does success mean to you?
I could, success can mean a lot of things, but I'll just speak to what does success mean to me in terms of being a manager and producer. Success means to me as a manager, having a client list that you love, that you believe in, and that is working and generating momentum, revenue, when fame, more like less fame and more like people know who they are and like their work. That is, that you like them, and that they're working. And additionally, that you are growing yourself. You're growing at least as fast as your clients are, and you are embracing change. I think that's a successful manager, one who has a great list that they love, and that they're personally growing constantly, and they embrace change. Now, as a producer, success is you are actually producing projects that are selling, that people like. I mean, that's what a successful producer is.
Mhm.
And I don't care about the awards. The awards aren't important. The box office and the money is, I think, secondary to, do you like the projects? Are you consistently getting more? And are your relationships expanding to the point where people are seeking you out? Success is also, the definition is, people are seeking you out. You are responding to incoming inquiries. That's a successful person, and both as a producer and as a manager.
All right. Well, thank you again, Mr. Zadak. Thank you so much for taking the
Thanks,
time and
Cadence. I
doing this
appreciate
with
it.
me. I really appreciate it.